so much, everyone. It appears like a setback for the economic growth as might be envisaged by the Tinubu government, as the inflation rate figures released today doesn't give so much joy. The inflation rate has moved to 31.70% in February, according to the latest data by the National Bureau of Statistics, the NBS. The Bureau released the figure today, where the latest data showing a rise from the 29.90% recorded in January of 2024, according to the Consumer Price Index and Inflation Report for February obtained by Channels Television. The hike represented a 1.80% increase from what was recorded in January. In February 2024, the headline inflation rate increased to 31.70% relative to the January 2024 headline inflation rate, which was 29.90%. Looking at the movement, the February 2024 headline inflation rate showed an increase of 1.80% points when compared to the January 2024 headline inflation rate. The report now reads, and we can show you what it means. If you look at the code there by Reuters, which indicates, and they state that what we've seen, 31.70, is what we perhaps are seeing in a long time, as far as the mid of 1996. If we look at how things have grown from November to December, the January and February, this year seems to have spiked and incredibly. And what this means, if you look at the food inflation figures, that too is nothing to write home about at the moment, and something that causes some kind of worry. And it goes, food inflation stand at 37.92% in February, from 35.41% in January. In December, it was 33.93%, and November, 32.84%. If I can show you, if that is ready though, what it has been in past governments, that we have, we analyze that for you. We'll show you what it's been on the other governments since 1999, what inflation has been when they were inaugurated, and 9 months later, we make comparison and see where we are today. Let's get a perspective and see where we are today. And perhaps you as a citizen, you need to know what you need to do in terms of maybe tightening your belt, saving more money, investing your money, keeping your money, whatever you need to do. The implication, especially as food inflation seems to be the worst scenario that we have seen in all of the pack. Mr. Paul Alaje is a chief economist and a partner as ABM professional. Mr. Paul Alaje joins us live here in our studio here in Abuja. Thank you so much indeed, Paul, for joining us tonight. Did you ever expect that inflation rate will go up to 31.70%? Well,
our projection was that inflation would be 30.5%. And we took that from what the behavioral pattern of inflation in the last 16 months or 18 months. So we drew the graph and we saw that inflation will be going to about 30.5%. But what we saw was a big shock. Because there were other error factors, there were other variables that perhaps had different behaviors that made inflation to go really high, up to 31.7%. So, and for most economists, we thought inflation will grow not as high as was eventually reported by the Bureau of Statistics using their base year. Of course, if you ask many Nigerians, they will say that inflation for them is far more than 31.7%. And like I've said time and again, that my personal inflation is actually beyond the average of what I've seen. Because I can tell you, when we started taking survey of inflation in 2015, a meta, and for those who do construction, they will bear witness. If you were to buy a pole of 20 mm, 12 meters long by 30 inches, at that time, it was 500,000. Today, on the street of Aba, Port Harcourt, Abuja, and Lagos, the minimum you see the same is 6 million naira. And it's not just that better. Check how much was Hangul iron, which we call 50 by 50 by 5 mm, and you can choose different metals. You can also go to what airline ticket for the rich. How much were they buying? How much was sachet water 5 years, 3 years, 2 years ago? How much is sachet water today? The truth is that for so many people, inflation figure is even much higher than this. And you see, the question is, why do we get ourselves to this point? If time permits, I would share One of the reasons why we got to this point, and we have not gotten to the point of deflection. That means inflation is still expected to go high until we bring in positive signaling to the economy such that the impact of inflation will reduce, unlike what we have in this moment today.
Now, so some people may ask, this is a political program. Yes, politics, policy, and governance. That's what we focus on the program. If someone can give me a narrow note there, give me a narrow note there. Let me give you an understanding, a basic understanding of what inflation is. And those who will be asking, what is our business in talking about inflation? I'll let you know what this means for you. Thank you so much for giving me that note. All right, this is a 1,000 naira note. Inflation means simply, if I'm able to buy this sheet of paper with this 1,000 naira note in January, if it does increase over time, that is the rate. And perhaps my purchasing power, okay, someone giving me a better note. So this is a dirtier note. So let's look at this new note now. If this is what I could buy with this sheet of paper, right? 1,000 naira buys this. Inflation means that if I cannot buy this again with this, it means that it's gone over. Let's assume that in January, I bought this sheet of paper with this. And in February, I have to have 2 of these to buy this. It means that my purchasing power has dropped and the prices of the commodity has increased.
So, but to put proper perspective to it, when people hear purchasing power, when you took the second note, it's as though automatically you'll be able to pick it on the street. No. A lot of people are minimum wage, 30,000. Since subsidy was removed, Naira was devalued, they've still not been able to increase what they earn. Still 30,000. And I can tell you, President Tinubu will most likely make an announcement on 1st of May that minimum wage will now be increased. And our projection, again, our projection, that's the work we do. We are researchers. Between 105,000 to about 150,000. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not in the mind of President. But this is the pattern we have seen precedent.
Some labor leaders are saying about 1,000 naira would be ideal in the economy of today. I don't know if Nigeria can afford.
I don't think so. But this perhaps is what the president will announce. If he announces between 105,000 to 150,000, there are implications. All the money states that they have will disappear if they must pay. So the gain of subsidy, remember I've said that government, those in government, federal, state, and local, are the beneficiaries of subsidy removal and devaluation of the currency. But unfortunately, they will be the big loser when that decision is taken. Unfortunately, now the people are losing. But when the decision to increase minimum wage comes, then everybody may lose. The question will now be, why did we take the decision in the first instance? And this is why we say that when you are making economic decision, it's important to observe a medical doctor who heard or who has diagnosed a patient and said this patient seems to have an infection and he needs a medication that we take 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, 1 in the evening for 7 days, 21 tablets. So the doctor will not say, because I want it now, combine the 21 tablets and ask the patient to swallow it. Unfortunately, this appears to be the decisions we have taken on the economy. And I will tell you, first, we removed subsidy. Just 2 weeks after subsidy was removed, we devalued the Naira. Just after that, we have seen an historic increase in NPR just to combat inflation. The question is, why did we have inflation? Inflation is not a function of demand side. Central bank is fighting inflation with its demand side strategy. And this is not the first central bank that will do that. Governor Emefiele spent years combating inflation, sitting at MPC, increasing interest rates because of advice perhaps that come from the external forces. The truth is that we will not overcome inflation if we continue to use that approach. And I've said it time and again, such that inflation does not climb beyond 40%. Already, my prayer was that inflation will not get to Cocoa House. Cocoa House has now been dwarfed by inflation, as that story is only 24, 25, or 26-story building. Now we are looking at over 30% inflation.
Yeah.
But so the strategy we are using cannot work for it. What it means is that when we say that your purchasing power has been depleted, we are not saying that you will see another 1,000. What we are saying is your living standard will reduce, because in the short run, or even in the medium term, you cannot vary your income. What you earn will most likely be the same, especially when you are income earner and you are not somebody like businessmen who can increase your price. Recall that when you increase your price, you can determine price, you cannot determine quantity demanded. You cannot determine the two at the same time. Again, you have to look at what is the responsiveness of demand side to what you sell. So all of these factors must be put in place. That is why before you hurt the economy, you have to be careful. Here is it. So what may most likely happen is that the 1,000 naira note you have, the first one, the new one, the second one will not show his face. The first one will now be divided. What it means is that for those of you that had 1,000 last year, what you have this year is a little above 600 naira.
So it
that
means,
is what it can buy.
Mr. Alaje, I try as much as possible in my layman understanding of economics. I try to explain whether or not I'm right. I don't know in my explanation of what inflation is because of our viewers. My viewers tonight are not interested in those figures. What we are interested is in the implications. So if 1,000 naira buys me a plate of rice and beans before President Tinubu gets into office, it then means that because of the inflation rate that we have seen, I can no longer buy that plate of food.
Beans will disappear, and you will get perhaps half plate of rice.
I may not get
and
meat.
If you are not careful, with the trend inflation is going, with the forces that is driving it, which I think are the thing we should attack. The forces, what is inducing inflation? If you fight those in inducing inflation, I tell you, President Tinubu will be one of the best presidents that Nigeria will be remembered. But when we think that shortcuts can solve our problem, it will continue to give administration, to paint the administration bad. You've said what inflation has been, and you have drawn the pattern. Even as non-economists and non-econometricians, you see that the administration seems to have some challenges regarding the economy. So you cannot use quick fix to solve the problem.
Let's assume, Mr. Alaje, for example, things are not very usual towards the end of the year, and they don't pick up easily in the early year, in the early months of the year. So we see November, December, the inflation figures they're rising, they're spiking. We saw it.
They are growing at an increasing rate.
It's an astronomical rate. It hits the roof in January, and it goes further in February. Maybe, just maybe, some of the policies we saw the government take in February of this year, the impact, we might start seeing them.
No, it will not.
It
will not. You know why? We are fasting. Christians and Muslims are fasting. Check. Behavioral pattern. During fasting, price increase naturally. During fasting. So Muslims are fasting, Christians are fasting. What do you think will happen? I can predict what it will look like.
But those believe that these rising prices are caused, they're unnatural, they're artificial, and that those evil forces, political forces, that are driving the wave and the tidal wave of the increase in the spike in the price of commodities.
No, I don't think so. Insecurity plays a major role. Over 200 pupils have been adopted. I read the Punch this morning. Bandits are demanding for 1 billion naira. From what I read in the Punch, the headline this morning, and the story. So how can we say that pupils who are in their school were kidnapped and farmers who are in the bush could not be kidnapped? So because people first want to be alive before they can become an economic agent, automatically the supply side, because the agent of production may be afraid and they may not want to go to farm. So what should we do therefore? The solutions are in the problem. My proposition, which I've made available in the public space over the years, will be we need to adopt a national transformation agricultural program, starting from states. What does that mean?
Can you saw what the Niger State government?
Exactly. But we cannot be a pocket of states. President Tinubu must come out as a leader to say, all states, for you to make Nigeria work, it's not about him. So governors must support him.
But he said something that was actually interesting, though. The president said, look, I want to see you make a move, governors.
Yes.
And when you do, within the next few weeks after you've taken your action, federal government will support you.
No, I think it's the other way around. The federal government must come with a plan and the state will support. Listen, why we saw inflation dropped in the early part of this democracy was because government started with needs. Needs went to seeds went to leads. That's national, states, and local. It's not the other way around. Because what Lagos wants to do is not what Niger wants to do. What Niger wants to do is not what Kebbi wants to do. But there must be a national vision, which everybody must buy into. When you have multiple vision, then it leads to confusion. Niger State wants to take some economic policy, but in the overall economy, what is the implication for Nigeria? So it's important for government to say, this is our economic roadmap, which I'm still looking for, and I hope government will get it. out very, very quickly. And this is the role state must play. What is the proposal? Each state should bring between 500 hectares of land to 1,000 hectares of land. And what is being planted in Plateau will be different from what they are doing in Kogi, even though they are both in the North Central region. What is happening in Oyo must be completely different from what is happening in Cross River. What is happening in Borno must be completely from what is happening in Benue. How do we come together to say we must have a national, we must transform that space? Because when you look at
we need to have a radical
and it must come with the strength
out of the 36 states, maybe a 15 to 17 states must take this move.
All states must take it, not 13.
So when
not
you
15,
focus on
states.
agriculture, that's a portion.
Yes,
of
that agriculture, there must be different key players: the federal government, the state government, the local government, and the most important player must be private sector. But private sector must have the confidence that government wants agriculture to thrive.
So there must be some level of grants, some level of credit bumped into that sector.
Bank of Agriculture, let us ask, how much has the Bank of Agriculture given in loans to those in agribusiness?
Bank of Agriculture, I'm not sure it's being in a good state for my last check.
But when you see banks that are performing other roles like commercial roles, they are in good states. They are servicing, you see. So that's why service sector keeps growing. But what is happening to agri sector? Again, how much has been given to those in agri and those in manufacturing? So we cannot see economic miracle when we don't work it out. So our miracle must be worked by us in terms of economy. Other than that, I am sorry, we might see inflation. This marriage with inflation, this kiss, romance with inflation, may stay longer than we can imagine.
So I see the hand of President Tinubu right in front holding inflation, and inflation is pulling him. And I can see those who draw graffitis. I can see the president holding inflation that way. I can see Mr. Cardoso and Mr. Wale, all of them holding inflation. And inflation looks like a giant pulling everyone and pulling everyone. What do we need for these leaders to be able to drag inflation and drag it down for the interest of Nigeria?
It's in supply side. That is what everybody is hiding from, supply side. Our solution is in supply side. I understand central bank have responsibility for stability, price stability, exchange stability. But what we must all, as a people, starting with our leaders, federal, state, and local, it is what can we supply today? From food, how do we boost our food supply?
It comes back to what Peter will be saying.
Well, Peter will be
production
said,
to consumption.
Yeah, production
consumption to production.
Consumption to production. So we must not say because Peter Obi said it. If it makes sense, then we have to approve
it. Does it make sense?
So does it make sense? It's not about the agent. Economics, I've been to several schools of economics. I've been several degrees. It is not because my professor said it. When we take it to run the model, does it work? So it's not about we want to hide from it because somebody said it. No. If we do it, the credit will not just go to the person that said it. It will go to all of us because, one, we are going to abound. We are going to grow in productivity. We are going to reduce this inflation that we thought at 20%. When it first got to 20% under President Buhari, we thought, no, we are going to overcome it. Don't worry, those economics are naysayers. Today, it has almost doubled. Recall, the target of government for this year is 21, and we need a reverse gear. Unfortunately, we move inflation from gear 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, and for modern cars, your gear can even be more than gear 5. So instead of saying we are moving to Lagos, speeding from Abuja, but unfortunately, we are taking a detour when we got to somewhere around Zuba towards Kaduna. I don't know when we are going to get there.
Since President Tinubu got into office, inflation rate is being on the increase.
Yes.
Now, the question here is that CBN, for example, we've seen CBN under Godwin Emefiele towing a pattern, giving funds to agriculture, something rise, all of those.
Anchor program, yes.
Those who have criticized it, that is not the business of CBN. We've seen that same pattern under Cardoso. There's a meeting with the CBN and the Agric Ministry. They're giving out monies also to the Agric Ministry. Do you see a problem in that?
Well, this is, first of all, we need to look at what is driving inflation. According to central bank, money supply has increased. The question should be, where has money supply gone to? Because Nigeria can't even withdraw 20,000 naira from their ATM. So how can we say that money supply increased when people are saying they are poor, they are hungry, they are deprived, and they are living in poverty and penury? So it is true that money supply increased. Central bank did not tell a lie about it because the number agreed. But we need to ask which sector of the economy is getting more money. Is it private sector or public sector? The figure that came from FAC and the figure shared by the National Bureau of Statistics reveals that more money has actually gone to private sector. So when we increase NPR, Who is to control what? To control private sector or majorly public sector? The answer is to control private sector. This private sector is already stifled. So if we now say that we want to use MPR to solve the problem, I can tell you that it is likely that that will make inflation to go up, but to not stop in inflation. But it will get to stagflation. Now, to answer your question, that central bank is having meeting with Ministry of Agriculture and so on and so forth to see how all of them, most of them are still quick fixes. We must have plantation work. At the stage we have, with our numbers, we are no more in 1950s. We are not in the 60s. We are not in the 70s. In this age and time, you can check countries, including India, how many factories is available in one state, equivalent of Kogi states. Over 30,000, not 300, not 3,000. I said 30,000 factories producing. India don't also have accurate power supply. But they understood that for our factory, we must provide the same. We have seen a state that has published that we now have regular power supply. And I noticed that Angel did not fall when they made an announcement that there is relative power supply in Abia State. Can we repeat the same for Ogun State? Can we repeat the same in Kebbi State? Can we repeat the same? So this is where governments will share. It may not happen overnight, yeah. I agree, yeah. But there is positive signaling that we must start with. Where is our investment going?
Let me ask you,
important.
Mr. Alaje, under this government, and the president has said that he is very committed. He has good intentions. Like the vice president said, look, nice people good people, you might have good intentions, but good intentions don't amount to anything if your actions are not commensurate. So is there anything that this government has done that is in the positive direction?
A lot. This government has done some things that are in the positive direction. So I will not say that first of all governments, no matter whether you like the person in office or you don't like them, since Nigeria started till date, most of the leaders have good intention for their people. And that we must say that they certainly have some kind of good intention for their people. So I would not tell you that governments don't have good intention for Nigeria. That will not be right. The intentions are good. But you know the truth? Economics has no emotion. If you take one wrong decision, it can cancel 10 good intentions. At the end of the day, you will live in your production possibility curve. It may never become a reality. So you see government make some progress in certain areas. Over time, when you don't see it through, that will lead to some reduction. So here is it. Government says, we want exchange rate to unify. I give you an instance. That sounds really good. But what did we do? We devalue. Hoping that when we devalue, it will form disincentive to those in the parallel market. Yes, the intention is good, the announcement is good, but did it achieve the result? No. Even when central bank now said, we now want to intervene in the market, central bank is giving FX to BDC at 1,301 naira. But the same central bank is setting import duty for immigration at over 1,500. Where is the unification? Exactly my point. So you're even making it cheaper for the BDC, which I think it should be cheaper for those that are bringing capital good to the country so that we can become independent. So you wonder that, check what is happening in NAFEX window. So good intention, no doubt, because we have seen, we have read that Port Harcourt refinery is now taking, so that's good news. Yeah. But with this that is happening, what has happened to our crude? So, and when I speak, I'm not speaking to an administration that Nigeria did not start with this administration. I am speaking over time because data we have collected, we use for our projection, it is not in the last 9 months. I just mentioned to you 16 years, 15 years, 18 years. That is what economics do. In fact, 40 years data to project. And if you have lived long enough, which I believe you have, and for many viewers around Nigeria today, some of the things we are seeing in Nigeria should not be new. This is a replication of structural adjustment program. We saw prices change almost every week. The difference is that now it's changing almost every day. So the implication of structural adjustment program and the aftermath effect in the economy and the social crisis that followed is what we pray that we don't get into. So,
to wrap up now, we look at all what is happening. The calm down on Binance, the meetings with manufacturers, manufacturers of cement and some critical products in the market. Is that working?
Well, I've seen the price of cement reduce slightly from 10,000 to between 7,000 to 8,000. I've seen drop slightly, which is good, which is commendable. So meeting have delivered that. The question is, if meeting can deliver it, why did it go up in the first instance? That's the question I would like to ask. Then Binance, you know, I don't do crypto. For those that do crypto, they have their reasons for trading crypto. So, but what I believe with that is we need to check if Nigerians are sending money out, does it mean that there has been no inflow? Let's compare the two. For those who are also making money through crypto and those that are sending money out.
Do you believe, Mr. Alaje, that there are there's politics in it, and there are people who are manually sabotaging this economy?
Absolutely. I 200% believe that people are sabotaging the economy. I certainly believe people are sabotaging the economy. Unfortunately, if we don't take decision about those sabotaging the economy, like we have said about many other leaders, we may also say that perhaps the president has not tried enough, because in the next 10 years, when we remember the administration, we'll put his name on it.
Let's quickly look at this so that we can close quickly, have another guest on the program. Look at it. Under this different government, there's a source from the Statista and the NBS, and what it has been under the different government. If we quickly can make a comment on these, and we look at what has gone on under this government. Under the Obasanjo government, at inauguration, 11.36%, that was the inflation was. 9 months after, minus 1.73%. On the Yar'Adua at inauguration, 4.64%. 9 months after, 8.04%. Under Jonathan, 15.04%. 9 months after, 12.08%. It dropped. Buhari at inauguration, 9%. 9 months after, it rose 11.38%. You had blamed Buhari government for the woes that were present. You said Buhari took Nigeria economy 20 years
50
back.
years, actually.
Can we say that Buhari is the cause of our problem presently? But under Tinubu government, at inauguration, inflation 22.41%. 9 months after, 31.70%. In 30 seconds, can you
A lot of countries were against Nigeria before President Obasanjo came to office because of the military junta. Because of the challenges we had, our crude was not properly priced and so on and so forth. But when he came to office, it showed that it would be a Democrat, make some commitment around the world. We started seeing inflow into Nigeria because FX, the direction FX go will determine where our economy is going, because we are highly import dependent. So we could see some reduction in the pressure of what has happened to Naira before President Obasanjo came. And with policies, he brought the brightest mind to his administration. It was so liberal, no void of tribal bias, void of political bias. It was quite open. Then when you saw President Yar'Adua, Niger Delta crisis was around that period where there was reduction in what we had, and the pressure was so much. President Jonathan saw good price in terms of inflow that we had in FX during his administration. Then President Buhari, we saw all manner of things that went on in terms of economy, including sharing money in the market. Of course, printing money, we have said that time and again. So it is normal. And some of the effects that we had with the last administration, this administration inherited, unfortunately, this administration cannot hide, because many will say they belong to the same political party. But President Tinubu have used quite a number of methods. And like I said, as a medical doctor that wants to see a patient, the first thing to do is not to combine drugs and put it on, so that you don't start dealing with the kidney of the economy and the liver of the economy, because when you give too many drugs at the same time, it may pack up the system. Perhaps this is the challenge you are facing. But we can still perform surgery. So make sure, because now there's transplant and heart, you can change the heart, you can change many things. So the heartbeat of the economy is the question. How do we improve supply? So when President Buhari is talking to his cabinet members and the governors, the question should be, we have seen what Central Bank have done. How will we boost supply? And from food to manufacture good to boosting export, all supply, productivity, and export. If you can do that, I tell you, it will be the most celebrated president ever in our history.
Thank you so much, Paul Alaje, Chief Economist and Partner at SBM Professional. Thank you so much. And I see a vision. I'm not a prophet or a cleric, but I believe so much in Nigeria, and I want to see what this note will do for me in the next couple of days, and perhaps it will do better than buying me half of the plate of rice that you said could buy me today. But that's how we leave it tonight. Thanks so much, Paul Alaje.
Thank you so much, Father.